Ski to you all, and a happy Flavoring Friday to everyone, of course, presented by our friends at OG's Brands. If you haven't had a chance yet, check out the wonderful new offerings from OG's Brands, including their OG's Natural and their Big OG's, now available. For more information, check them out over at ogsbrands.com. Welcome into a Flavoring Friday. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as a JD Martinez fan, and I'm joined by my vice mayor and a far more reasonable journalist / reporter / host, the one and only Thunderstick Jesse Friedman. Jesse, I'm not at all still upset about the Diamondbacks not getting JD Martinez. I didn't at all lose sleep over it last night. I am not at all taking just brief moments to have crying fits. But again, you and other people may have convinced me that even Joc Pederson might have been a better fit here for the Arizona Diamondbacks, at least based on the projections for next year, than JD Martinez. But we do know more now about the Joc Pederson deal.
Yes, we do. First of all, the deal did happen. Yesterday it wasn't. I guess the team still hasn't made it official. So I guess
it's not official until the team says it's official. Yes,
it's not official until the Diamondbacks, send us an email or tweet it out or whatever they're going to do first. But it did in fact happen yesterday. We were kind of having to speculate on what the terms of the deal were. Gambo had tweeted that he thought it was a 1-year deal with potentially an option on top of that. It turns out that it was a 1-year deal with a mutual option for 2025. People are saying this is a 1-year, $9.5 million deal. I would probably more describe it as a 1-year, $12.5 million deal. 12.5 is the total guarantee of the contract, and mutual options don't tend to get picked up all that often. So I think there's a pretty good chance that Joc Pederson plays 1 year with the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks pay him $12.5 million altogether for that, but he is slated to make $9.5 million in 2024. The mutual option is for $14 million. It has a $3 million buyout. Theoretically, this could go up to 2 years and $23.5 million if somehow both sides are interested in another year after the 2024 season is over. I think the initial reaction there for a lot of people was, that's it. Like that's lower than a lot of people, I think, probably expected.
It's lower than I expected. It's at least lower than I expected them to essentially pay on a designated hitter, not maybe necessarily lower than Joc Pederson. 20, like you said, that it could be worth up to 23.5 million, right? That's not something that's super enticing unless he's worth that 14 million next year. Like you said, the mutual option is a little bit difficult because again, if he plays well, he could probably receive more than that on top of the $3 million buyout that he's going to receive from the Diamondbacks, regardless of if he plays for them. But you also have the 14 million side of things, where if he's not very good this year, Diamondbacks might not want to pay him $14 million next year, because that is a decent amount of money. But the hope here is that he is worth it. The hope here is that we see him return a bit to his 2022 form, which I feel honestly like he's capable of. That's the one part of this deal that really does make me feel like he could end up being a better option than JD Martinez, at least. I said it yesterday. We're going to have to wait and see before we can really judge this deal. I know the initial reaction by many people seemed to be either apprehensive or to not really like the deal very much, Jesse. But we did put, now that the terms were out there, we did put a poll out there to see what the people thought. And this is the result of that poll. And for the most part, it feels like people think it's a pretty good move. For the audio listeners out there, 18.8% of the votes were an A. The winning vote is B, which is 51.8%. You have C at 23.7% and D or F at 5.8%. So for the most part, based on these votes, which was there was almost 1,200 votes, this was a fairly positive move that a lot of people are viewing it as. I mean, even if you're not fully on board, I think grading it a C is pretty fair. It's not, it's not a deal that a lot of people are excited about. I was watching Foul Territory.
Yeah.
AJ Brzezinski definitely isn't excited about the move, and he discussed why he could see Diamondbacks fans not being excited about it. But I am still waiting to see, because again, I think that this still improves the lineup. I think this team is a better team with Joc Pederson as a part of it. And there's a couple of things that may have made, going after a guy like Pederson instead of some of the other options make more sense, like Eugenio Suarez batting now there in the middle of the lineup as well for this team.
Yeah, I mean, digging into the numbers a little bit more on Joc Pederson, I wrote a story that went out this morning over on gophnx.com. Check it out if you haven't already. I was struck by how compelling some of the underlying numbers are with Joc Pederson. His ex-WOBA in 2022, the season where he was an all-star, was 367, and his ex-WOBA in 2023 was 366. He was basically the same hitter, and according to that metric, at least in the year prior, he was an all-star. He had 23 homers at an OPS of almost 900. His expected OPS, which is something that you can pull from the Statcast numbers, was 846. Which is a lot higher than his actual OPS of 764. And he also had a really good walk rate and strikeout rate in 2023, better than he's had in quite some time in both of those categories. And also, for what it's worth, he struck out less and walked more than both JD Martinez and Jorge Soler in 2023. For anyone kind of looking at comparisons between those guys. So. Again, the big thing here is that he is a platoon hitter. And I think we emphasized that plenty on yesterday's show. Joc Pederson isn't going to give you much against lefties. And, part of him being able to put up numbers like he did in 2022 and, the underlying numbers that he did in 2023 is the fact that he's facing right-handed pitchers, almost 90% of the time. The Giants protected him against lefties pretty heavily last year. But yeah, in that role, he has a lot of value. And once again, I mean, I think, Fangraphs in a story a few years ago said that around 72% of major league innings come from right-handed pitchers. That is the majority of situations. That's more than 2/3 of the time. And in those situations, Joc Pederson could very well be just as valuable for the Diamondbacks as, JD Martinez or Jorge Soler.
And there's just some things about Joc and getting to know him that are very positive. I think there is a lot of things that the Diamondbacks were looking for that Pederson brings. He has a tremendous amount of experience. He played a key role, Jesse, obviously, in the Dodgers and Braves World Series runs in back-to-back seasons, right? And I know I don't know which series there he had bigger impact on. It felt like 2021 when he went to the Braves, he was involved in quite a big, quite a few big moments, right? But 79 postseason games in his career. And he's still not that old to have played. I think that's why Joc Pederson feels like he's 100 years old to me, Jesse. That's why I feel like he's been in the league for 20 years, is the man has played 79 postseason games. That's most than, what some franchises have ever played. Like that's crazy how many postseason games he's played.
I mean, I feel like you could add together the postseason games of every player on the Diamondbacks roster, and I'm not even sure you would end up at 79.
Right.
Pederson has a lot of postseason experience, and that's what happens when you play for the Dodgers for a long time. And as you said, he was with the Dodgers when they won the World Series in 2020. He was with the Braves when they won the World Series in 2021. And not only was he there, but he was quite good. Like Joc Pederson, especially in 2020 for the Dodgers, was a force to be reckoned with during that playoff run. You look at his numbers throughout that series, he slashed throughout that postseason run as a whole. He slashed 382, 432, 559 throughout the entire postseason run. And that's when Joctober was born, Derek. That's when people were calling it Joctober. That kind of carried over to the 2021 World Series run with the Atlanta Braves, where Pederson was a big piece for them early on in the postseason run. His numbers kind of faded toward the end. But
he
yeah,
had a
I
lot of
mean,
home
by and
runs, right?
large, yeah, he had 3
Like
homers
early.
in his first 6 games during the Braves postseason run in 2021. You look at his career numbers in the playoffs; he's at 256, 332, 482. So he has plenty of postseason experience, and he's been a force in some of the biggest situations.
Could that have played a big factor here? Obviously, we know cost probably played some sort of factor here in acquiring Pederson over potentially some of the other options. But I
Sure.
mean, it's not to say JD Martinez and Jorge Soler don't have their fair share of experience in the playoffs, especially Soler. But it does feel like if you can bring in a guy that's a little mixture of like, I guess what you're getting out of vets like Madison Bumgarner and Evan Longoria. He's a little younger and, a guy that can, once again, just fill that positional need that they have right there. It feels like it kind of adds up a bit as to why he was enticing for Mike Hazen to pursue.
Yeah. Defensively, another thing I'll say is as I look closer at the numbers, I was like, oh man, yeah, you probably don't want Joc Pederson playing a ton of defense for you at this point.
Mhm.
He's 31 years old, which isn't that old. I guess Jorge Soler is kind of in a similar position where from an athleticism standpoint, that just hasn't really stuck for Joc Pederson. I know we talked yesterday about how he was like this great football player in high school, and he came up as a center fielder for the Dodgers. There was a time when athleticism and stolen bases like that was a big part of his profile. But those days are no longer, Derek. Joc Pederson is a designated hitter. If you need him to have the occasional spot start in a corner outfield spot, he can probably do that for you. But the less time, much like hitting against lefties, the less time he's in there defensively, the better when it comes to Joc Pederson.
Look, we don't all have Jesse Friedman's metabolism. Okay. I'm just going to start off with saying that. I'll
I
also
can eat
say,
whatever I want, Derek,
I know
and
you
I
can. I
won't
hate you
gain
so
I
much
won't gain
for it.
any weight.
I know.
Yeah, honestly, I don't like it's to the point where I don't even really like it because I would like to gain a little bit of weight, and it's virtually impossible. I've basically given up at this point.
You sound like someone that gets really high off of 10 milligrams of OGs, and I envy that, being a guy that needs a little bit more, as has been rumored around the office. But Jesse, you were also there for one of Joc Pederson's biggest moments in his career, at least most fun moments that he's had in his Major League Baseball career, the 2019 Home Run Derby in Major League Baseball. And you were present for this?
I was present. Yes, I was present. This was in Cleveland. This was at Progressive Field. Yeah, I was not there for the All-Star game, but I was there for the Futures game and the Home Run Derby. I was doing an internship at that point in nearby Springfield, Illinois. And when I say nearby, I mean like 8.5 hours away. I was a crazy person and did the drive so that I could attend some of the All-Star festivities. But yeah, that home run derby was absolute insanity. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Joc Pederson, I believe they went to like a third tiebreaker at one point. They were putting on just an unbelievable show, had really stolen the show in some ways. If I would argue the entire All-Star week in Cleveland, that was like the best part of the whole thing. But what was kind of anticlimactic is that neither of them won. Pete
Yeah.
Alonso actually won
I
that
remember
home
that.
run
Yeah.
derby. It was one of those situations where like, two guys wear each other out to the point where, the guy like on the other side of the bracket is just kind of chilling. So Pete Alonso won the thing when all was said and done. But Joc Pederson has always had big time power. And he still does. I think looking at that batted ball data, it's very clear that Joc Pederson still has quite a bit of raw power in his game. And obviously that's a big reason why the Diamondbacks made this move. We'll keep showing this Baseball Savant page until
I
we're
can't
blue
get
in the
enough of it,
face.
Jesse. Just
Uh,
forget us being on screen. Let's just, every time we talk about Joc Pederson, just put this bad boy up on screen.
Yeah, I mean his hard hit rate of 52.2%. I wrote this in my story. That's better than anyone on the Diamondbacks last year. His barrel rate of 12.1%, better than any Diamondbacks hitter last year. His average exit velo of 92.1 miles per hour, better than every Diamondback, I believe, except for Tommy Pham. But if you just narrow Tommy Pham down to his time with the Diamondbacks, then Pederson was better than him too. So yeah, I mean, he is. I think he becomes the most formidable power hitter in this lineup pretty much instantly.
There's, of course, something that's following Joc Pederson around when it comes to his connection with Arizona, Jesse, and that is the time the Dodgers celebrated in our pool and allegedly peed in it. Now, I tried to find some sort of photographic evidence of Joc Pederson in our pool during that celebration. Couldn't find it. I'm not saying
what year would that have been?
20, was it 27?
Because Pederson didn't come up until 2014, and I want to
say no. It was way after
that with the Dodgers. Okay.
Yeah, it was way after that. He was definitely a part of the team the year it occurred, and I was present that day. I was in the locker room. I was in the visiting locker room, in fact, when the Dodgers were celebrating clinching the National League West. That's when they celebrated in the pool. I remember a lot of people. Adrian Gonzalez, definitely remember. Matt Kemp, remember him spraying me in the face with champagne. But I don't, and I remember them getting like giddy and being excited to run out there. I don't remember seeing Joc Pederson go out there. And then I tried to find a picture of him in the pool on the internet. Couldn't find that either. So either Joc Pederson actually didn't get in the pool and pee in it, or he cleverly scrubbed the internet before signing with the Diamondbacks of any images somehow of him being a part of that celebration. I am not saying they don't exist. I'm not a very good investigator. As you guys know, I'm not very good at most things that I do. But I will say I attempted to find a picture just because, for reasons of hilarity, to have on the show. Couldn't find one of him in the pool celebrating. But if you have one, send it to me, DM it to me. I don't know. That's exciting. I want to see it. So no, I was Gabriel. No. And if you stop that clip before the rest of my explanation, I will sue you for slander or libel. I'm not sure which one. Again, I'm not an attorney. Just like I said earlier, I'm not very good at anything. So I'm definitely not good at law. But Jesse, there are other reasons that Joc Pederson kind of has a bad reputation. And we've talked about this. Like, we've talked about some of the guys on this team having a bad reputation and then coming to the Diamondbacks and fitting right in. But what is one of the reasons why, especially recently, he kind of has had that bad reputation?
Yeah, Joc, I wouldn't say he has a bad reputation, but I wouldn't say he has a good reputation either.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a story that I found from, I think it's September of last year, from KNBR, which I believe is a radio station out there in the Bay Area. And it goes into quite a bit of detail about Pederson's season. And, certainly for Giants fans, Pederson's 2023 season was kind of a bummer, right? I mean, he was making almost $20 million, as we discussed yesterday, because he accepted the qualifying offer. And at least his surface level stats, we talked about some of the underlying metrics, but his surface level stats were not at all, worthy of $20 million. He was not that caliber of player for the Giants in 2023. And I mean, you look at some of what was written here. It is clear that there were questions, at least among media members, and I'm sure many fans as well, about the shape that Joc Pederson was in. He apparently had shown up to spring training in very good shape in 2023, and kind of throughout the season, his conditioning at least appeared to get worse and worse as the season wore on. At least that's the way that this writer perceived the situation. And Pederson kind of admitted it in some ways. I mean, he basically said that, I'm doing a lot of the working out and whatnot in the off season, and when the season starts, I'm focused more on baseball matters. And so, you're not necessarily going to maintain all of that through the season, which I understand on some level for sure. It doesn't seem ideal. I mean, you wouldn't want all of your players to be getting in progressively worse shape as the season goes on. Obviously, your workout regimen is going to change when you're playing a whole bunch of baseball games. But Yeah, you know, there are stories of him, like, I don't know, smoking cigars, like, you know, when other guys are doing bad. Like there's some interesting stuff here. I wouldn't read too much into it necessarily. There are some players that were interviewed here. Some of his teammates, Alex Wood, a longtime teammate of his, said some positive things about Joc and how, you know, he really wants to win. But yeah, Joc Pederson is not like, I think the Diamondbacks in particular just have a lot of players who are just so clearly universally loved and work hard. And, you know, there aren't really any questions to even be asked there. Joc Pederson isn't really one of those guys. I don't want to overstate that. I don't want to make it sound like he's, you know, a cancer for the clubhouse or anything. I think that would be kind of ridiculous at this point. But there are some questions to be asked, and, you know, certainly some things to monitor as the 2024 season goes on.
I will say that actually, let me ask you this. Have you been to Fisherman's Wharf, Jesse?
Yeah, I think I've been to Fisherman's Wharf. Yeah. It's like,
have you eaten at Fisherman's Wharf?
I mean, isn't Fisherman's Wharf like the largest tourist trap in North America, right? Like everything is like $47 or something for a side dish or whatever.
The man's making $20 million a year. Do you think price money is an object when you're making $20 million?
If we're talking about Joc Pederson, then yeah, I'm sure that
I'm just connecting the dots.
Money is no
Ghirardelli's has a chocolate factory right out front. Like, what are we doing here? That's ridiculous to expect anybody to stay in shape in that environment. But no, I will also say, like, it does become a thing at times where, you know, especially with baseball being the kind of sport that it is, you don't need to stay in the same conditioning as much as you just need to kind of stay healthy, because you play baseball almost every single day. So it's not like you're not going out there and working out. It's not like you're not going out there and doing drills and running and just doing some stuff every single day. But, you know, part of it is trying to make it all 162 games. So it's understandable for a guy to come, you know, into spring training in really good shape and not necessarily maintain that shape throughout the year. It's also disappointing when a guy you're paying $20 million to doesn't live up to the expectations, regardless of the shape that he's in, right? And yeah, I mean, maybe some of those things that are funny and kind of quirky when you're younger aren't so cool when you're a little bit older and people are questioning your commitment to the game, like smoking cigars and kind of being that kind of guy. But you know, again, this is a different culture here with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think one thing that Torey Lovullo is very good about is not only, you know, having kind of a commitment to all of the players being in the same mindset, but, you know, being a good coach or manager that adapts a guy like that to the system. I think that, you know, you come in here to a team that just was this close to winning a World Series. And if you're signing here, you have to be doing it because you want to be a part of a competitive, fun team. I'm sure there's lots of places that Joc Pederson probably could have signed for this amount of money. I'm not, you know, it's not like this was his only option. Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, it still remains to be seen what the market is for Soler, which most likely now will go to Toronto based on the earlier reports and where JD Martinez lands. But there is a possibility we see those guys get similar money, and that right there might, you know, reignite this whole you know, anger that we didn't get them. Right. For now, though, I think that, you know, when with spring training right around the corner, we will get a chance to see how Joc Pederson comes into spring training, how he, you know, the effort that he puts out there and his commitment to this team. This team is a connected team, Jesse. I'm not sure if you've seen the t-shirts or heard the speech, but this is a connected team. So you got to be part of it. You got to be part of the thing that they're building here. And I refuse to believe that Mike Hazen would acquire a guy like this if he didn't think that that guy had the right mindset and that guy was going to buy in to what Torey Lovullo is doing here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think as far as the conditioning stuff goes, the reality is that, I mean, I don't want to say conditioning doesn't matter for a designated hitter, but it's certainly not as important as for other guys, right?
Give me my big fellas. Give me my big fellas, Jesse.
According to this story, Joc had made some comments after the 2022 season about wanting to come back and you know, be in better shape to play defense in 2023. And that did not happen. His defensive metrics in 2023, I believe, were worse. The Giants basically got to the point of, very much trying to shield him from playing any defense at all. So yeah, in that sense, it's a bad thing. Like, if you want Joc Pederson to be able to play a viable, left field or right field for you, you want him to be able to, really make it a point to kind of maintain his shape throughout the year and whatnot. But now Joc Pederson is entering this kind of final stage in his career where he's there to hit dingers, right? Like Joc Pederson is in the lineup to hit right-handed pitching. That is the reason that the Diamondbacks made this move. And again, I don't want to say conditioning doesn't matter whatsoever in that, but we've seen some people not necessarily in the best shape who could still hit their fair share of home runs. And I don't think Joc Pederson was in like egregiously bad shape or anything by the end of the season. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a huge issue given where his game is at this stage in his career.
I'm fairly certain every time I talk about taking pre-workout supplement on this show, one person in the comments asks if I actually work out. So I get it. The work you put in the gym doesn't always translate over into the body shape. But also, I for one, welcome our big meaty man. I think that he can stay as big and meaty as he wants to if he's going to smack dingers around here. So let's go. Big meaty men slapping meat. Anyway, we thank you guys for being here right now on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel on a Friday afternoon. We always love you guys being here. We are still not in studio thanks to the Coyotes crew lighting the building on fire. I don't know who started the fire, but I know who didn't start the fire. We didn't start the fire, right? We were free of guilt. We were at Putting World having a good time, and there's a song that probably covers that. But I do appreciate you guys being here. If you have not subscribed to the PHNX Sports YouTube channel yet, make sure to do so now. Sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss when any of our wonderful shows go live. And leave us a thumbs up. We always appreciate those likes. If you're listening on the audio side, we love you guys too. Our listeners are beautiful. And of course, if you have not subscribed over there, make sure to subscribe on your favorite audio app. Leave us a review. We always appreciate those 5-star reviews. Of course, we can't do it without our friends over at Empire Today. They installed some beautiful flooring in our studio, which hopefully we will get to see again. I don't know if we will, Jesse. Is
it safe, Derek? Is it okay?
Oh, it's totally safe, Jesse. It's totally safe. But apparently there's some 30-year-old part that nobody can find that we need in order to fix our electricity, right? See, the hassle that you go through when you don't use people that you can trust, like the people at Empire Today. The Empire Today isn't going anywhere, Jesse. If you have any problems with your flooring, you can call them, and they're not gonna have to fabricate new parts in order for your flooring to work. They will come out. They have a warranty program. They service their own warranties, and more importantly, they'll let you shop for your flooring at home. So if you do want to take a look at how those floors will look in your space, they do have a virtual floor designer, which will let you kind of see how whatever flooring you pick out looks in whatever space. Forget having people come out and bring you samples. Just do it all online today. You can schedule a free in-home estimate, and that will get them to come out, give you some measurements, tell you how much it's going to cost. All listeners can receive $350 off when they do use the promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHNX for details. And I would ask Damon how he's done on his bets, but I guess I should more ask Jesse. Jesse, how have you done on Damon's bets? Pretty good?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm trying to keep Damon from messing up.
He doesn't listen to you enough.
A little hit or miss. He listens to me sometimes, but
Yeah.
I think we're starting to build trust because of the recent success that I've had.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, Derek. The bets show might be mine in a matter of a few weeks if Damon doesn't prove that, he can kind of get it together a little bit. So
you're insubordinate, Jesse. You want to come for my mayorship, you want to take Damon's show. I don't like this side of you, but I've tried to warn people that
this guy just wants to see the world burn.
This guy, Damon.
He just wants power in his hands. It's all he cares about.
Oh, man. Anyway, thank you for your bets. And when I say that, I mean Jesse. Of course, you can win some money if you listen to Damon, if you listen to Jesse, and go download the BetMGM Sportsbook app now. Of course, with your first deposit of just $5 and using our bonus code of PHNX, you can get $158 in bonus bets instantly in honor of Super Bowl 58. So all you got to do is sign up for BetMGM and use that bonus code PHNX, as our guy Eric would say, the best letters in the entire alphabet. Place your first bet MGM Sportsbook wager through the Sportsbook mobile application for at least $5. That's it. You will receive $158 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Damon talk about the disclaimer.
Problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. Oh, we almost had it. I appreciate the effort this time. And Charles Woodall Pike's right. Jesse is trying to take over PHNX one show at a time. It's slow. It's methodical.
I've been trying to get on the Sun's show for quite a while.
That's what those tweets are all about, you guys. Don't fall for it. The tweets are just all
they
ploy
keep
for him to
adding
be on the
hosts, Derek. They keep adding hosts. So now, I mean, now that there's like 12 Suns hosts at this point.
Yeah, Jesse stands in line and then the line somehow moves backwards instead of forwards. It doesn't make any sense. But Elise says, remember when Jesse said he was only going to have Chase lounges when he moved into his house last year? I see a regular old chair behind him. Jesse, you're letting the people down. You're letting the people down. I don't know what to tell you.
I know. I'm ashamed.
this move may have let some people down, but one of the silver linings to getting Joc Pederson is the fact that with that $9.5 million deal, it would appear the Diamondbacks do have some more money to spend on some of their other positional needs. And according to this tweet from John Gambadoro, it did not reap any more in news information. John said Joc Pederson, I called him John. That's hilarious.
Who's
Gambo Gambo said Joc Pederson was always on the D-backs radar, but became more of the favorite after Arizona signed Suarez and Gurriel, making them very right-handed hitting in the middle of the lineup. They are not done, still looking for depth in the bullpen at shortstop and catcher. That's interesting because the shortstop part there, that's not something that we've heard as much about in what the Diamondbacks are seeking, as much as the bullpen and the backup catcher.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, yesterday we talked about how it could make sense for them to add a right-handed hitting outfielder, seeing as how Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is the only right-handed hitting outfielder on the 40-man roster. You could find someone who could serve as a fourth outfield type while also contributing in that DH slot against lefties. But yeah, that's not exactly, what the Diamondbacks are targeting, at least according to this tweet. The thing that really stands out to me more than anything is that if the Diamondbacks were, as some people, expected or maybe just hoped, if the Diamondbacks were going to go out and find themselves a platoon partner for Joc Pederson, I'm not sure that catcher or shortstop would be really the positions that guy would play. It's hard to find premium offense at catcher or at shortstop. I know we talked about Gary Sanchez a little bit recently on the show as someone who could pair nicely with a Joc Pederson type. But I don't really see that happening necessarily to me, especially, once teams get to the point of using the word depth, which hopefully we'll get to talk with Mike Hazen and hear a little bit more from him on this move shortly. But the fact that Gambo there is using the word depth, it feels like we've kind of entered a stage of the offseason where you're not necessarily talking about signing guys to major league deals anymore. Maybe it's minor league deals with invites to spring training, adding depth, right? I mean, that's what depth really is. You don't usually use the word depth when you're talking about adding, like a fifth starting pitcher or, a backup shortstop or whatnot. At least not necessarily. You're talking more about guys who could come into spring training and make the team potentially, but, are probably not major factors on the roster anymore.
I know Gary Sanchez is a name on a lot of people's minds as far as catchers go, right? But I know we have a couple other names that we have discussed, maybe some other players out there at those positions that might not only add some depth, but maybe someone that could also, potentially DH. Maybe if they do get Gary Sanchez, maybe that would allow Gabby Moreno to DH, sometimes and keep his bat in the lineup, but the question that people are asking right now, and we kind of passed this up in our first segment, is obviously a corresponding move is needed for Joc Pederson to be added to the roster. It's the reason right now we haven't heard about this being official. We're still pending whatever that corresponding roster move is. Is there any chance that, the Diamondbacks could still package a trade together to make that roster available, like that roster spot available, or what do you think that ultimately they're going to do there with that?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, I think we kind of speculated in this same way when the Lourdes Gurriel Jr. signing was taking quite a while to be made official. We kind of wondered, like, is there a trade happening here? Is that the Diamondbacks, trying to avoid just losing someone off the 40-man and maybe getting something back in return? That could be happening. I don't know. But yeah, the Diamondbacks do have to make a corresponding 40-man roster move. They wound up moving on from Diego Castillo in order to bring Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in. They're going to have to make another tough decision here. Theoretically, as we discussed back then, the Diamondbacks aren't really they're in kind of a different phase now where it kind of hurts a little bit more to be losing these guys off your 40-man roster.
Yeah.
I think but everyone on the 40-man at this point is there for a reason, and could reasonably see some kind of a role in 2024 or or beyond. But yeah, there's certainly some kind of move coming in order to clear the space. I think a trade is possible, whether it happens in order to clear this 40-man spot or it happens a little bit later in the offseason. As we talked about yesterday, the D-backs have a lot of depth pieces that they can't really use right now. They could use a trade to kind of try to flip some of the pieces that they can't use or that they're overstocked in, to try to bring in, one or two pieces that maybe would make more sense for them. But yeah, we'll just kind of have to wait and see how this plays out.
Known baseball GM Elise says, I would think a package, even if it's just for some minor league depth. And then she says, but better than DFA for nothing, even if value isn't super high. And that's definitely the truth. If there's some way that they can do something instead of just losing some of these guys, it just depends on the value, right? And we don't know what a trade value, we don't know what a package would look like. We don't know what players would be a part of it, but we do know guys that are free agents, and there are some players out there that could fit this role that Gambo is kind of discussing the Diamondbacks seeking.
Or there are some guys that I have on my list who really don't fit any of the buckets that Gambo is talking about. But I'm also like, well, hey, he sort of makes sense. Why don't we talk about him? So I'll start with a few of those guys. None of these guys are shortstops or catchers or relievers. So based on Gambo's report, I don't necessarily expect these things to happen. But in my opinion, they at least would make sense on paper. Randall Grichuk is one guy, a right-handed hitting outfielder who really does some serious damage against lefties. I think he had a 995 OPS against lefties last year. He is someone who can play center field. He doesn't necessarily grade out well there, but he can play all three outfield positions. I guess the biggest hang up with Grichuk is that he was claimed off waivers by the Angels toward the end of the year, and he had a 120 OPS plus with the Rockies, and then he had an 80 OPS plus with the Angels down the stretch. So didn't exactly end the season on a high note, but he has a long track record of hitting lefties well, and he would be kind of that right-handed hitting fourth outfielder type that we discussed yesterday.
What about Robbie Grossman?
Robbie Grossman, man, the man hit third for the Texas Rangers at the start of their run to the World Series, which still blows my mind. They eventually kind of ditched it, and Robbie Grossman, I think he like pinch hit once or something in the World Series. He wasn't really a factor for most of the rest of the postseason after he struggled early on. But yeah, Robbie Grossman is a guy who also has a history of really destroying left-handed pitching. He slashed 309, 416, 536 against lefties in 2023. Doesn't really hit righties much at all. Although he is a switch hitter, but it's sort of a situation where you really only want him facing lefties if you can make that happen. He never really swings the bat, which is possibly my favorite thing about Robbie Grossman. He never chases pitches out of the zone, and yet he still strikes out like a decent amount, I suspect, because he's just taking like a lot of called strikes. He's a relatively passive hitter, but he managed to still do some damage against lefties in 2023. I think he could make some sense. His defense at this stage in his career is not particularly good. He'd be sort of Joc Pederson-esque in that he's an outfielder who you probably don't want to see in the outfield. So I'm not really sure it would make sense to have two of those guys on the same roster. So yeah, I'm not sure I necessarily feel all that confident about that one. couple other guys that I have, CJ Cron as a first baseman. Of course, the brother of former Diamondback Kevin Cron, who people might remember from back in the days. Been with the Rockies for a while, kind of a similar story as Grishik, where he was let go by the Rockies, found his way to the Angels, and was pretty terrible once he arrived with the Angels. It feels like every play that the Angels claimed off waivers down the stretch just was miserable. Toward the end of the season, he had a 519 OPS once he was brought in by the Angels. But on the whole, for 2023, he hit 248, 295, 434. Has a decent track record of hitting left-handed pitching. Not necessarily a super exciting option on paper, but someone who, I guess could back up Christian Walker at first base and hit lefties a little bit. And then my last one in this first category, Garrett Cooper, someone who kind of fits in a similar category as a first baseman, could also take some DH at bats against lefties. Kind of a nice platoon setup there with Joc Pederson. Garrett Cooper was actually a pretty good hitter just a few years ago. If you look at his numbers in 2023, a bit of a down season by his standards. He did hit 17 homers with 61 RBI, but at this stage in his career, he's not exactly the player he once was. But again, he's got, an ability to hit left-handed pitching and could slot in nicely in some capacity for the Diamondbacks.
There's a lot of discussion in the chat about Tim Anderson potentially.
Yeah.
There's also an idea being floated out there that I hate. Tim here says Tim Anderson could be a huge bounce back candidate, doesn't strike out, fantastic base runner, could back up third base, shortstop, and second base, high average guy, minor downside, weak jaw, as we all saw. Also, Gabriel brought up AJ Pollock, and I hate that idea more than I hate most things in life. I hate that more than I hate traffic. I hate that more than I hate having to get a new driver's license after losing my wallet. I hate that idea. AJ Pollock is like the anti JD Martinez. He's a former Diamondback that was here, that has had some success elsewhere, but I couldn't want him back on this team any less, right? And I, again, much like JD Martinez, it's my heart getting in the way here. You said very mean things about us, and we don't want you back. Not now, not never, right? And so that's the way I feel, but I'm sure there's more rational thoughts behind other people maybe wanting him to come back. Speaking of potential targets, Jesse, let's bring back Nick Ahmed for shortstop if we're looking for shortstops. Who says no?
Yeah, I mean, Gambo mentioned shortstop, and I mean, presumably they want someone who bats right-handed. There aren't a whole lot of those out there. Nick Ahmed is one of them. I don't think the Diamondbacks are going to bring Nick Ahmed back. But yeah, the options at short.
Did we ever discuss on this show the fact that Jordan Lawler is projected to have the 4th highest WAR on this team in 2024, according to Zips? That computer system is broken, Jesse. It's broken over there. I'm telling you.
Is that true? I guess maybe among position players. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's among position players. Correct. Yeah. Not great. I don't like that at all. Anyway, but actually maybe it is great. Maybe it's great.
I think you should like that very much.
I guess I should like that anymore, because there's our shortstop answer right there, potentially, if that's the case. But what about some other more reasonable options, potentially?
Yeah, there's a few shortstops. Again, I wouldn't say I'm all that compelled by any of these, but Gambo mentioned shortstops. We're looking at shortstops.
When you're looking at these, are you looking at guys that could fill that DH role as well as filling like that backup role, or what? What do you think?
I mean, do you want Elvis Andrus like as your platoon partner with Joc Pederson in the DH slot? Probably not.
Maybe in 2016. I don't. When would that have been? Maybe then.
Even then, I'm not sure. Looking at some of these options here, Elvis Andrus is one of them. He's 35 years old. He just passed the 2,000 hit mark. Shouts out to him for pulling that off and having what has really been a pretty remarkable career. He stuck around for a long time, still grades out well defensively. A strong veteran presence in the clubhouse for sure. I don't really see this happening. I don't really understand exactly why the Diamondbacks would want to do this. The whole shortstop thing in general, I guess, is slightly confusing for me. I mean, the team already has Jordan Lawler. They already have Kevin Newman. They already have Blaze Alexander in the system as well.
Yeah.
I guess if you don't want to be forced to have Jordan Lawler and maybe you're not totally sure if Blaze Alexander is ready at this point, and Kevin Newman, like he's there to try out, but you don't want to count on him. I guess it's maybe helpful to have, one more guy in camp who can play shortstop. Elvis Andrus is probably going to sign a major league deal. So I'm not sure the Diamondbacks would really want to spend real money on someone like him. A couple other names real quick. Kike Hernandez, someone that Diamondbacks fans are very familiar with, as long as we're talking about longtime Dodgers, coming to Arizona. Kike Hernandez was traded from the Red Sox to the Dodgers midway through the 2023 season. And as tends to be the case, he was much better with LA the moment that he arrived there. He had like a low 700s OPS. It wasn't anything fantastic, but he's generally hit lefties fairly well. He played a lot of shortstop in 2023. I don't know if you really want him playing that much shortstop, but he has some defensive flexibility, can play the outfield a little bit. I guess he could be someone that the Diamondbacks look at after what was really a pretty severe down season for him. The last one I have in the shortstop category, Alberto Mondesi, who came up with the Kansas City Royals, I think played it was like 19 years old and came up and contributed to their World Series run a number of years back. A pretty exciting player in his first few years in the majors, still only 28 years old, but he missed all of the 2023 season with the Boston Red Sox. He's missed really a ton of time with injuries over the last few years. So his development is just kind of stalled out. I imagine that could be potentially a minor league deal situation where the Diamondbacks could, bring him into the fold and kind of see what he has to offer. But again, I don't really understand the purpose of any of these guys, if I'm being honest.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, but that's about all I got as far as shortstops are concerned.
That's all we got, I guess. Well, and then when speaking of all we got, if we're talking about catchers, there aren't a lot left. According to Roster Resource, Jesse, I see 5. Gary Sanchez, Manny Pena, Yasmani Grandal, Kurt Casale, and Cam Gallagher are the only catchers left as free agents, period. So if the Diamondbacks do upgrade at catcher, it needs to be one of those guys or a trade, right? If they're going to, I mean, they have quite a few options for backup catcher right now. As we had on this show, Tucker Barnhart is one of those options, but we don't know if the Diamondbacks are pursuing something further. Based on Gambo just tweeting this out, this feels like a more recent kind of thing that they are still in the market for a catcher.
Yeah, I guess they maybe just want to add one more guy to the mix here. You've got Barnhart, you've got Jose Herrera, of course, the incumbent as the backup catcher. Maybe you just want, one more guy to add to that mix. As you mentioned, there are some other names in there. Ronaldo Hernandez, someone the Diamondbacks added on a minor league deal. He hasn't played in the majors yet, so I don't really view him as being a strong candidate for that backup role, but I guess it could be possible. And then you also have Adrian Del Castillo, who made the jump to AAA in 2023 and could maybe get a look for that role. But again, I mean, Gabby Moreno is super young. Do you really want to pair him with, a catcher who hasn't played in the majors yet? Yeah. I don't really see the fit there either. So yeah, maybe you're looking at bringing in, Manny Pena or Kurt Casale or whomever is, one more guy to add to that mix.
I want a veteran paired with Gabby. That's what I would want. I would want somebody that Gabby could potentially learn from and become a better defensive catcher behind the plate, learn how to, like, he's already very good at all of these things, but right now to get those little tips and pointers to be able to pick someone's brain, I feel like it would be invaluable for him. And again, that's Tim brings it up, Gary Sanchez or bust. Gary Sanchez just feels like a very good addition here, but I feel like, again, this might be a little maybe cost too much for the Diamondbacks.
I just don't know if I see the Diamondbacks signing another player to a guaranteed major league contract. I'll be curious to hear more from Mike Hazen whenever he talks after this Joc Pederson deal is made official, but just based on that tweet that we saw from Gambo, again, you're talking about adding depth to the bullpen, depth to the catching position, depth at shortstop. You're clearly not looking for a starter at shortstop or catcher. I don't think the Diamondbacks are looking for like a back end reliever. It feels like they've entered the part of the offseason where you're making moves on the margins. And Gary Sanchez, he's not necessarily a frontline catcher. I could maybe see him taking a backup role, but you're certainly having to give Gary Sanchez a major league contract after the season that he had in 2023.
Well, while it might feel like the market is moving slow, we have a little bit more of a discussion on why it's not moving nearly as slow as it was in the past. There's been a few years where this free agency market has done this exact thing, and it's not a huge surprise. I think it's just a comparison to last year. It felt like things went a little faster. Last year was different, though. Last year was kind of like our first year of being back to normal for an off season, and I just felt like it was different than this year, where it did feel like there were a couple of things holding up teams, but we'll talk about that. The relievers, by the way, I know he brought up a bullpen guy. Too many. It's the opposite of catchers, Jesse. There's too many to even start trying to figure out what range, where are we at, because there's so many left of are they going for a top end bullpen guy? Are they going for someone in the middle? Like, we still have no idea what their budget is, and we have no idea how much money they have left to spend this particular season. Also, there's the way that they could structure deals, because Madison Bumgarner's contract will fall off their books next offseason. So if they do bring in a guy, it's not to say that they couldn't do a multi-year deal where they make a little less this year, and it's kind of structured to second or third year end of a deal. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of guys left that are really worthy of a contract that long, or if the Diamondbacks want to commit that kind of money to a bullpen guy, considering, we don't know how they would fit in right now.
Yeah, I would be pretty surprised if the D-backs I mean, I guess I could maybe see a reliever on a major league contract. But yeah, again, you're not looking at, someone to pitch the seventh or eighth inning or whatever. I would be pretty surprised if that happened. And I think it is, in my mind, the most likely outcome there is that it's minor league deals. I think back to the D-backs getting Juris Familia last year, and he was seemed to be in pretty good position to make the team in spring training. That, of course, didn't wind up happening, but someone like that, like a veteran who could come in and maybe earn themselves a role with a strong spring performance.
Well, you can be out there at Chase Field watching baseball games all season long, and a great way to get your tickets last minute is through our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the place for last minute ticket deals. So when you feel like you're missing out, don't experience that FOMO. Get your tickets at the fastest growing ticketing app in the country. And it is that for a reason. It's a very aesthetically pleasing, easy to use app, and you will get the best deals on last minute tickets through Game Time. Of course, you can snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Right now, download the app, create an account, and you can use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Of course, don't miss out. It's not just sporting events, shows, concerts, anything you want to go to, they have your last minute tickets. And of course, fill up at Circle K near you, because of course there is a Circle K near you everywhere here in the Valley. Circle K is everywhere. And of course, you can get down on their Inner Circle membership program for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. But if you do join their Inner Circle program, you will get 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. You also save 3 cents off per gallon every day after that. And of course, there's all sorts of other fun freebies in the app, including free prizes, snacks. They got a buy 5, get 6th one free on pizza, coffee, and ice cold fountain drinks, and so much more. So stop by Circle K today. Of course, we thank you guys for being diehard members, those of you that are diehard members. And speaking of which, Jesse and I have a very fun diehard discussion tonight going on over at the Discord. So do not miss that. I still don't know how to run things at the Discord, so we'll see if we can figure it out. But either way, Jesse will be on there. Jesse and I will be on there talking to you guys, and it's one of the amazing benefits you get for being a diehard. Of course, You get yourself a free shirt from the PHNXlocker.com, get access to all of Jesse's content. You get access to that Discord lounge, so much more, including discounts on our events and, of course, discounts with our partners as well. So sign up today over at gophnx.com and become part of our diehard family. Jesse, we're talking about the MLB offseason moving so slowly. It's been blamed on a number of factors. I blamed it on the Ohtani sweepstakes. I felt like Shohei Ohtani and where he was going to land kind of held things up a bit. There was also kind of those international stars as well coming over from Japan and Korea that were some big names that were getting some big contracts. And it felt like it was almost like a residual thing where, once the big names were going to start dropping, we were going to see all these guys signing places, but it doesn't seem to be the case. And we still have a lot of players unsigned. One thing we've talked about, we've heard about, is like financial uncertainty in markets where Bally Sports is still the regional sports network, is part of the reasons why some of those teams haven't really been spending. But it's really not that uncommon, according to an article from Jeff Passan over at ESPN, and in fact has been worse in the past. In 2018, MLB teams had spent less than $700 million combined on free agency prior to January 25th. And that
the Dodgers did that in one afternoon.
In
right?
one guy. Yeah. The Dodgers did that one guy. Well, I don't know. Does $2 billion a year really count? I don't know how that works anymore, but
was it the present day value? I don't know.
Yeah, well, exactly. How are they deferring the payments back then in 2018? 51 players did sign deals between yesterday's date, essentially, and opening day, and every single one of them was 1-year contracts. You compare that to last year, less than half that number was available. There were 25 players last year available, or that signed essentially from January 25th through opening day. But of course, Jesse, there's one common theme here. And that common theme is that the top 4 unsigned free agents were all Scott Boras clients back then. And today in 2024, all 4 of the unsigned top free agents are all Scott Boras clients now.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Right.
Yeah. It leads to one conclusion, Jesse. Scott Boras must be stopped. He must be stopped.
Okay.
This man must be stopped, is what I'm saying. Players love him, I imagine. If Scott Boras is your agent, you love this man. He's the greatest thing to ever happen to you. And if you're anybody else, he's kind of a villain.
Yeah, I feel like I guess Scott is maybe kind of showing us the way that he feels with how things have transpired so far. I feel like agents have maybe a perception, at least in some cases, that the longer they wait, the more leverage they get. Like teams are eventually like, all right, we need to start, like, we need to figure out what we're doing. Spring training is right around the corner. Pitchers and catchers, it's happening in a couple weeks. We gotta start making moves here. But I don't know if it necessarily plays out that way, because I could also see the flip side where, if as an agent you kind of wait too long, and then if other teams have gone elsewhere, then maybe you've kind of lost your leverage at that point. Yeah. I guess that hasn't really been the case this offseason, because teams haven't really pivoted elsewhere, because teams aren't pivoting anywhere. There's just nothing happening in general, except for the Diamondbacks. They're, certainly have been one of the more active teams in the game. So yeah, I don't fully understand why things have been the way that they have. But Jeff in that story over at ESPN did a good job kind of keeping these in perspective. And yeah, back in 2018, the story was actually worse than where we are right now.
I know you've never been in a fight with your spouse, Jesse, but sometimes it's really a battle of attrition and who can give up first. And if your players are on board with potentially threatening to like not play during the season, and just wait for someone to eventually have a need because of injury or something like that, that pressure might still be there, even if the other suitors have moved on and found other free agents for them to pursue, or, whatever they did to fill those roles that they need on their teams. But yeah, I do feel like, once again, another analogy is my Black Friday analogy, right? You're a team, you had money to spend, you missed out on this guy, you missed out on that guy. You even maybe you even tried to figure out a way to budget for Ohtani and you couldn't, but then you decided like at least we could get a couple of other guys that won't cost us as much, and then you walk away with nothing. You have to get to a point where you're just like, we have to do something to improve this team, and I don't even care at this point how much it costs, because there's this obligation on a front office, on an ownership, to make a team better. It's the reason why, even though sometimes it doesn't make sense, teams still do it, because you kind of have to. You can't just go out there and say, hey, our team kind of sucks this year, so we don't want to waste money on a free agent that really isn't going to win us that many more games. So let's just wait until next year, and then we're going to like have this like a little bit more money, and we'll try to put a run together. People will hate you for that, even if it sounds like a very reasonable plan. And in most cases, it's probably what more sports teams should do. More sports teams shouldn't go out there and do what, like the Rockies did with Chris Bryant and pay one guy a ton of money and expect that to have impacted your team and still finish dead last in your division, right? It doesn't always make sense to give a guy all of that money. You just still have to make it look in some way like you're trying to make your team a competitive team, a better team in some way. If you're not, you're not doing your job. Even if you're not actually improving your team, you still have to make it look like to fans that you are, right? So
I feel like if I were a front office executive right now, I would be like massively stressed out, because I have like not very much time and probably a lot of items still on my to-do list. I understand the irony here, given that I am the renowned procrastinating Christmas shopper. Somehow that pressure is good. That pressure helps me. But it's also different in baseball, because you're having to negotiate on things, right? Like when I'm doing my Christmas shopping, I know what things cost. I know what I can get, what I can afford and whatnot. Whereas here, I mean, these are all fluid situations. You don't know how the markets are going to turn out on any of these guys. And with how many guys are still out there, I know this isn't that strong of a free agent class, and the trade market seems basically broken at this point because all of the asking prices are entirely too high. But yeah, you probably still have, if you're a front office executive, especially of a contending team, you probably still have some holes that you're looking to fill. And this is something I talked with Mike Hazen about. I think this was at the winter meetings, not this past year, but the year before that. Like the order that you do things in matters, right? Like if you're able to get, if you fill this need before this other need, then it might cut down on what kind of money you have available to fill that need. Like the order here does very much matter. And at this point, if you're a front office executive, you might be in a position where you're just gonna have to start like rattling off these moves pretty rapidly, and you might not be able to make it happen in kind of as logical and as nice of a flow as you probably would have liked.
Yeah. Well, if you are concerned about your money and your finances, you need to look to our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union. For more than 84 years, Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted credit union, dedicated to creating exceptional service experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that make lives better. You can look to Desert Financial for checking and savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and so much more. And when you open a free checking account online right now, you'll get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. Well, that's all we got. We hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, and we actually have a little more for you. So if you are a diehard, make sure to join us tonight at 5 p.m. in the Discord. We'll have more on Joc Pederson. We'll have more on this slow-moving free agency and whatever else you guys want to talk about.
I believe that is during MLB Network's unveiling of the top 100 prospects, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, we'll have that to talk about too, for sure.
So we'll be able to talk about that. Yeah, Baseball America, as we talked about the other day, only had Jordan Lawler. He was the only Diamondbacks prospect on their top 100. So yeah, come hang out with us live and see if the Diamondbacks have more than just Jordan Lawler over at MLB Pipeline.
Another great thing to check out, by the way, is our friends at Someburros. I will be out there tomorrow, by the way, Jesse, because they are having their grand opening party at their Norterra selection. It's up here at I-17 and Joe Max, and I can't wait for that. Someburros has the absolute best Mexican food that you can find. Of course, it's a local partner, and we're very excited to be partnering together with them. I am specifically because I am a huge breakfast burrito guy. So make sure to check out.
I'm literally going to Someburros after the show ends, Derek. I've been thinking about it basically since we started because
Oh.
I haven't eaten anything today
Yeah,
and I am starving.
I have to fill everybody in on Burritos with the Boys. Burritos with the Boys was a new event that I had planned with Jesse and Damon, where I was going to bring burritos to the office because we were all supposed to be there very early on Thursday. As you know from earlier when I was talking about it, the Coyotes crew tried to burn the building down, so we didn't come in on Thursday. So since then, Jesse and Damon have both been waiting for some burros that I promised to bring them, and Burritos with the Boys has just permanently been postponed as it stands. And
the agreement, according to the terms of the agreement, Derek, we were supposed to have burritos delivered to us, and there were no stipulations in said agreement about whether the PHNX office was on fire or not.
Read the fine
so
print. Did not.
I'm gonna need you to deliver this to my front door.
I won't be doing that. I won't be doing that. But everybody out there, including Jesse, can check out their newest locations in Goodyear, Peoria, and I-17 and Jomax. Jesse, I know those aren't near you, but you do have one right next to you. So let Someburros cater your next meal, big or small. Order online or find one near you by visiting someburros.com. Well, that's all we got now. Like I said, make sure to join us tonight in the Discord. We'll be there answering questions, hanging out, talking to you guys at 5 o'clock Arizona time. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at cap_caveman with a K. Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. The people's producer, Damon, he is at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. We are Damon's dogs. Bark, bark.
Bark, bark.
All right. Well, there's a delay, I guess. But anyway, our show is at PHNX_DBacks. We just hit 11,000 followers, and we thank you guys so much for helping us get there. It's incredible, the growth that we've had over the last year, and it's because of you guys. So thank you guys so much for that. Of course, all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys again for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's more fun when you go out and get yourself a big meaty man.
We all silly like the mayor.